you for joining us at Wrestling Glory Days Weekly episode number 2. My name is Steve. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I do apologize for missing last week's show on June 2nd. Both myself and our special guest had some prior commitments we weren't able to get out of and lie about and come on here and talk about our favorite stuff, which is classic pro wrestling. Don't forget to leave your questions and comments on our Twitter page at Wrestling's Glory Days, Wrestling's G Days, that is, or our Facebook page, Wrestling's G Days. Our contact number here is 760-683-2627. Please give us a call. Maybe we'll be able to get you in and answer a question or two. With me this week is Charles from the Frosty North up in Calgary, and from the Jersey Shore, our newest member of the host team here, Chris. Wanted to thank you both for coming in. How are you doing today, guys?
I'm doing well.
Just great.
I guess I'll go first here. Things in Calgary are good and quiet. I'd like to make a quick shout-out to my boy T.J. Wilson, or everyone knows him as Tyson Kidd, who should be back on TV pretty quick after taking some time off with a knee injury. Let's hope everything's good to go. And maybe they'll learn how to book him, but that's asking a little bit too much. On you, Rick.
Things are not so nice and quiet over here on the Jersey Shore. It's a little bit of inclement weather, but I'd like to definitely send a shout-out to all our followers that following us on Twitter at Wrestling G Days, and our followers on our Facebook page. You guys really do make our work as admins really worthwhile.
Chris, you make a good point. Actually, do either one of you guys have your own Twitter page you wanted to pump out here for a minute?
I do not.
I actually do, but I actually am having some technical difficulties with my Twitter page at the moment, so I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one, Steve.
Okay. Well, I wanted to make a point, as you were saying, about our followers, and we wanted to thank everybody. We actually eclipsed this week 11,000 followers at the very second. We are at 11,292 followers, and this is a pretty big deal considering. I had joined the admin staff right at the end of October, and I believe in round figures we were at 3,900 followers. So within the last several months, we've picked up 8,000 followers, and I think by the end of the year, with everybody's help, everybody hitting that like button and passing it around to their friends and watch wrestling together, if we can get to 20,000, 25,000, I think that's going to be one heck of a year for us. And along with the podcast and all the great posts and the Twitter posts, there's so much to read, so much to do. Don't forget to look through our archives, guys. We got a very, very special guest this week. It's a former NWA and WWF Women's Champion, two-time Women's Tag Team Champion. That's Miss Leilani Kai. She's going to call us from sunny Hawaii to let us know what she's been doing, what it was like to be on the road, and what it was like to wrestle at Wrestlemania. We're going to have her join us just a few moments. Guys, what do you think you saw this week on Wrestling's Glory Days that stood out to you, Charles?
Well, I enjoyed the give and take that I get when I put out the Hall of Fame stuff. I mean, it did bring up kind of a weird complaint that the 70s ballot was too stacked. I don't get that myself, but that was kind of the thing that really that jumped out at me, though, was, someone was actually upset that I put too many good names on the ballot all at once. And so
they got themselves a free ticket to Bandland, but that's okay.
Exactly.
You know, I was thinking what's kind of funny is maybe you should do the enhancement talent wing as well, because there's a lot of guys out there that saw a lot of lights and never saw a lot of mat and still are pretty popular. And I got a guy I'm working with, and he doesn't quite know I'm working with him yet. I sent him an email. He hasn't emailed me back. So hopefully we'll hear from one of the best enhancement talents ever. I'd like to schedule him for a show sometime late in June, maybe the beginning of July if he gets back to me. He lives right up the street. I'll actually go to his house and make him a sandwich if I gotta. But I'd like to get one of the Mulkey brothers on. I think that would be something phenomenal for us to listen to. And if you're listening out there, Randy Mulkey, we're coming after you. Anderson, South Carolina. I know where you live, partner. We're coming. I'm bringing some barbecue.
Definitely. Something that really stuck out to me this week on the page was definitely the Hall of Fame. Being that we're in the 70s era, the 90s pretty much everybody is aware of. The 80s, pretty much everybody is aware of, at least the guys that were big during that era. But the 70s, that was before the advent of cable television, before the national cable overlay. So wrestling was still really territorial, and you had a lot of talent in the 70s, and the ballot is really stacked, but it's really everybody that's on there is really deserving of it.
Charles, you actually had made a separate ballot and actually just installed some guys yourself. Tell us a little bit about that process and what you did later this week. I know you had mentioned it last week that you wanted to put in some classic guys that weren't going to get a lot of play from normal wrestling fans just because of the age of the wrestler. Tell me about how you did that and what the process was.
Well, actually, I just kind of went through being a natural historian, I guess, for wrestling that I've been for a long time now, just for fun. I went through and I kind of picked guys I thought were really, really important to the growth of the industry. And so, yeah, Frank Gotch was probably the biggest star of the legitimate era. And so, yeah, he was a natural fit to go in first. And then, the Goldust trio of Toots Mont and Billy Sandow and Ed Strangler Lewis pretty much changed the industry into what it is today. And so without them, wrestling could have very well just gone away because it was not very popular when they took over.
Any chance
there
we're
will
going
be
to
one
see
more guy actually
Gorgeous
added
George
this week.
appear?
Sorry?
Any chance we're going to see a Gorgeous George appearance anytime soon?
Yes, he'll be in there. I can pretty much guarantee that. He may not make it in this class, but he will be there very quickly. Luthez is going to be added this week as well. Just for anybody who might be listening, he's the next entrant from that era. And after the 70s ballot is done, that'll close out our first class at our Sweet 16. And next week we'll actually be starting with the Lady Wrestlers ballot.
Fantastic. Well, that's going to be a great segue, actually, Charles, to this weekend. Our guest, Leilani Kai. We're very, very happy to have her. She's going to be calling in with us very, very shortly. I was in the process of trying to get Miss Kai on our page, whether it be a paper interview and or a full-time, on the phone interview. It looks as though we are able to luck out, and as we're speaking right now, up on my screen pops Miss Leilani Kai. So let's go without further ado. Let's introduce her and thank her for being on our show. Leilani, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Thank you so much. You sound great. You sound like $1,000,000. We can hear you loud and clear. Just wanted to ask you a very few questions. I know you're very busy out there training the next round of Divas and Knockouts. I wanted to ask, how did you get started into the business? Was it a money thing or something that you really, really wanted to just do?
It was something I really wanted to do. I've been wanting to do it since I was real young. I was always an athlete, and I started out thinking about doing roller derby, but when I got into my early teens, I went to some matches in Florida and watched, and I saw two lady wrestlers. I think it was Bonnie Watson and Sherry Lee, and it seemed so simple, but it looked like fun, so I just started pursuing any pro wrestlers I seen or talked to. I just kept telling them, I want to be a lady wrestler, I want to be a lady wrestler, and they just didn't believe me. They just kind of blew me off, but after a while, I guess they got tired of it and decided to help me, and they led me to the Fabulous Moolah's camp in school in Columbia, South Carolina.
You were trained by the Hall of Famer, the Fabulous Moolah. Did you enjoy that time? I've heard some very interesting stories coming out of that little area. Apparently she owned a ranch, and did you stay on that ranch like some of the other female talent?
Sure did. She has these little bungalow-like houses. It was like from Fort Jackson. It was their old part of their property. They had the bungalows where the soldiers used to stay, and then she had her house across this lake, and she had them like separated in their little apartments. They were okay, and we all mostly stayed out there, most of us, and we trained. And she had her ring next to her house. We'd go in the morning time and train, in the evening time and train. So it was exciting. Her school was a very good school. I've got to admit that much. She had some good talent there, and we all just worked together, and we're all like a family, like a team.
Who did you meet up with anybody there that you became friends with and are still friends with down to this day?
Joyce Grable, Wendy Richter. I haven't seen her in a long time, but I talked to her. But it was Wendy and Princess Victoria, Velvet McIntyre, Diane von Hoffman. Trying to think from back then. That was mainly Vicki Williams, Vivian St. John. We're all together down there. The girls came and go, really. Some couldn't stay too long. They couldn't handle it, and they'd leave. But the ones that stay, those are the ones I just named. And I talk to them once in a while if I can.
Certainly, being on the road a lot and still staying busy kind of leaves your time limited. As you were traveling through your career and going through, what's your most memorable match?
I'd have to say the Survivor Series, a 10-girl tag match. That was exciting for me. It was like 10 of us, and I was like one of the leaders there, and I thought it was a good challenge. It was an exciting event. That was like one of my favorites, alongside with WrestleMania. WrestleMania was very exciting too. So I had a lot of nice events I went to. I did a lot of TV.
It seems as though you were right in the mix of the revival of pro wrestling back in the early 80s, 1985. You won the women's title in Madison Square Garden, I believe. You were right in the middle of the rock and wrestling years. What was that like, coming from where you had to travel around much more territorial sense, where you got up into New York and you got a hold of the WWF, and they were really trying to make strides to become a nationwide known company? What was it like behind the scenes then?
Oh, it was fun. WrestleMania I, I was actually in Japan before that. I came in kind of late. It was like the day before. And I came into New York, and we went to the arena. I didn't really realize at the time how big this was. I've been at many Madison Square Garden events, and they're always huge. And this one's just huge as any of them. And I didn't realize how big this was until afterwards. It was very exciting. It was a dream come true for them to pick me out to do this match alongside Wendy Richter. It was a very exciting time. They had it was very busy that night. I got to meet Muhammad Ali. He had brought his children, and they stayed with me in the dressing room while he did his thing out there, and Liberace was probably the most exciting I got to meet. And then afterwards, WWE had a dinner party, and we all met at the dinner party and danced and had a good time. It was very exciting. That was chosen. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be able to do something like that at an early age. I didn't think I was ready then. If I would have known ahead of time, I would say, well, I'm not ready. That's how I would have thought back then, but I was just lucky. I was just at the right place at the right time.
Caught lightning in a bottle, would you say?
I'm sorry, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said you caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was so exciting.
What was it like when you were told that you were going to be winning the title?
I really wasn't told that. It was actually before that. Before I went to Japan, I would go up there and I was doing TVs, and a couple of the wrestlers would come up and raise my hand and put it back down, and raise it and put it back down. I didn't know what they were doing, and I really didn't know anything about WrestleMania at the moment. I wasn't told anything. I stayed overseas so much, but I was just came back for that, and I was excited. Afterwards, when I watched it, I realized how big it was. I didn't know it was televised all around the world. It was. I didn't really know much about it beforehand. It was always pretty quiet back then. I think if they would have said something to me, I might have been a little nervous. It was really my career.
Certainly. How long were you in the industry wrestling full time by the time WrestleMania I rolled around? Was it just a couple of years, or was it more 4, 5, 6 years?
You mean before?
Yeah, prior to WrestleMania I, you were active in your career for how long, roughly?
Oh, I started like in 76. I trained in 75, and I think it was like the last part of 75. I went to Alaska. I stayed in Alaska like 2 weeks. And then I went to New York, and then I went to Tennessee. I mean, I know those dates. And I traveled a lot. It was a lot of territorial back then. I traveled a lot. And in between, there was a lot of time off, too. So if I was to squeeze it together, I would say I'd put like 20 years in altogether. It was every night that I would wrestle. I had a lot of time off in between, and we did a lot of training. So I started in 76, more or less, I guess. And I worked for New York up there many times, and a lot of tag matches. Moolah was usually with us most of the time. So...
Now, you moved on to from WrestleMania 1, hadn't seen you for a little bit on the WrestleMania card until WrestleMania 10. You came back and faced Alundra Blaze. Tell us what that was like.
That was, I'd been off for close to a year, and they had called me and asked me if I wanted to come up and work with Alundra. They was really wanting to push her. It was a new era of women's wrestling. I wasn't really prepared, but they decided to send me over to Europe. To Europe and get some practice. And I went over to Europe and got practice. It was fun. I had a good time. I hung around with Luna that evening, and Alundra was very easy for me to wrestle, and afterwards I left to go back to where I was staying, and I was off for like maybe a couple months, and I think I'd started doing the circuit again and doing some training.
That is
I can't really
stuff.
remember that far back, but that's basically what it was. But I was very honored to be asked to work on WrestleMania 10. I was a little nervous at that time. The first one I wasn't, but the second time I was a little nervous. I hadn't had too much practice. But I got through
it. Was it a bigger stage? Was it a bigger stage for you at WrestleMania 10? Because by the time WrestleMania 10 came around, that's 10 WrestleManias, that's 10 runs through for WWF, and with the limelight and the glitz and the glamour. Did it seem to be a little bit more overwhelming than the first WrestleMania, where the first one was a little bit more step by step?
No, WrestleMania 1 is the bomb. That was the most exciting. That was it. That will be always the most exciting to me out of all the ones I've ever seen. Number one, I was at 10. 10, it wasn't nervous for me for 10, but WrestleMania 1 was most exciting for me. It was just all the things going on, everybody running around, and I did my first promo on that event, and that was the experience. I had never cut an interview before, but everything was rushed, but it was exciting, and I was treated very, very well from the WWE.
That is fantastic. Now, moving forward, you had traveled the world. You fought many a competitor. You've probably every single women's wrestler from then till now you've probably faced or met. And that brings me to modern day. What are you doing now? Tell us a little bit about the promotion you're working with.
Well, I'm not really working with any promotions. I'm kind of traveling around to different schools, looking at different talent, the future talent, and I'm wanting to teach. So I try to teach as much as I can from what I know to help future talent in their future. I've always wanted to be a teacher in wrestling. I like to do seminars if I can, but I'm mainly going around to different schools right now as much as I can, and working out and seeing what they're up to and how they're doing their wrestling, their schools. And I'm going to do a fan fest in August, like from the 1st to the 4th, I think it is. And I'm going to be a coach for a seminar for some talent there, and I'm excited about that. I'm starting to train a little bit for that, so I'll be better prepared.
That's terrific. And now, the Fan Fest you mentioned in August, is that going to be the one, the NWA Fan Fest up in Charlotte?
Yes. Yes, Greg Price.
I hear that's going to be in. I've
been to a couple of them, but I was asked to be a coach. Pardon?
you're going to have an all-star cast this year. I've actually heard of a couple of other names that's going to be there. That's going to be a good time. If anybody's between Maine and Florida, if you guys want to see some great old school wrestlers, come down and see the NWA Fan Fest. And when were the dates again exactly, Leilani?
I believe it's the 1st until the 4th. And they're running a seminar, and I think there's only like 27 students that's signed up for it, and it's going to be different coaches. I don't think they've announced all the coaches yet, but I was just honored to be one of them, you know, as a woman. They're mainly males on there. So I believe it's going to be Tully Blanchard, Les Thatcher, Tom Pritchard, and Jerry Briscoe, and myself so far that I know of.
That is an all-star cast. Now, I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned being a teacher and enjoying teaching. Do you have a star student you wanted to talk about? You mentioned, and I don't want to get her name wrong, so I'm going to leave that to you to say. Tatovic the Gamer, is that correct?
Yeah, Tatovic is how it's pronounced. It's hard to pronounce her. I know it's hard to pronounce her name, but that's what it is, Tatovic. Yeah, she's one of my students, and she's very special, very, very special. She's wonderful at martial arts. She's level 6 in Aikido Kan kickboxing. She's a dancer at Argentine Tango, also an actor and model. She's very talented. She's 24/7 training all the time. And I'll call her and I'll tell her, you know, who to watch. And if I can't see her, because I don't get to see her very often, I've met up with her a couple of times since WOW, and so she can get some extra training. But she's 24/7 training, and she teaches in movies. She teaches actors choreography, so, you know, how to fight scenes and all. She's very talented. I've never ran into anybody quite like her. And I'm real excited about her. She's a very lovely person. And you can catch her on Facebook.com /WOW Tatovic. And that's Tatevik.
That is some fantastic stuff, Leilani. When can we see the WOW girls perform again? Do you have their schedule in front of you? Is that something that you could tell us?
From my understanding, they're doing the best they can to get started back in the fall. I know all the ladies are trying to train as much as they can. I was at both events, and they were pretty good for the first time. And these girls are really, really talented, beautiful, beautiful women. And I'm proud of all of them. And we did intense training when we were out in California. And so the fall, the fans can look forward to seeing WOW back in action.
This is some fantastic stuff, Leilani. We just wanted to take a moment, the whole staff. We just really, really wanted to thank you for your time. I know personally, speaking with you, that you don't do a ton of interviews and that you really, you know, you value your privacy and your time. So we just wanted to thank you again. Our fans love you. We really enjoyed your company today, and your stories are great. I've got my line here, my message line is lighting up from our admin staff. Thanking you so much. And we'd love to have you on again sometime. And in the future, is there anything else you wanted to let us know about, any special events or anything else?
Well, I've done an RF video shoot interview. It's very interesting. There's very interesting stories in it. I plan on maybe doing one a little later on. They're all good stories. And right now, I got a sponsor for Fighter Alias. It's a new clothing line that Tatovic and I are doing. We are endorsed by him, and it's I love the clothing line. I believe in the brand. I'm going to be sharing it with all my famous friends. Tatovic and I are both excited about this. It's a very exciting brand in the clothing that we're going to try to push out there, because I've never done anything like that before, but I believe in this. So it's called Fighter Alias.
It makes everything a little bit easier to sell when you believe in it. And Leilani, we wanted to thank you once again. We're going to let you go because our time is about to run out, but it's been an absolute pleasure. I know you and I have been talking off and on for a good portion of a couple of months here, so I really, really appreciate your time personally. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you and all your listeners. Bye.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Leilani Kai with a lot to say, a lot of stories. Keep an eye out for that RF video. I know that the one she has up already is really good. You could probably go to RF Video right now and pick that up for about $15. www.rfvideo.com. Go right on the World Wide Web, pick it up, buy it, listen to it, learn, love. You know how it goes, folks. I got Charles. I got Chris. Chris, what do we think about that whole thing?
That was just absolutely incredible for me as somebody that grew up watching her and Wendy Richter and Judy Martin and Velvet McIntyre. That was a real treat for me.
Charles, you have anything to add?
Oh, it's just amazing that someone with that kind of legacy and history, and especially for ladies wrestling, which doesn't get a whole lot of good press nowadays, was able to come here and share some of her insights here with us.
Have either one of you guys watched her match with Wendy Richter where she won the title at Madison Square Garden? Have you seen that match recently? I saw it probably 2 or 3 months ago. It's I'd say about a 10, 12-minute match. Really, really good action all the way through. And, guys, you're talking 1985 here. This is stuff long before Divas, long before Knockouts, and essentially, honestly, I think what she's doing now with these girls from WOW, I've done a little bit of research having spoken with her. They're much more high impact, much more prone to put on an exciting match. And granted, I said this in our first episode, I have nothing bad to say about anybody that goes in the ring and works their tail off. But if you want some really exciting women's wrestling action, check them out. www.wowe.com. Wow, with a little E at the end. You can find them on Facebook, too. Excellent stuff. These girls are gorgeous. They're very talented in the ring. Folks, I've been told I got 90 seconds left to go. One thing I wanted to talk about real quick. Somebody posted earlier this week, and let me get back to it, the wrestling fashion. I found it to be absolutely hilarious. We're going to join we got some people coming on next week with us, Chris and Charles. I want to have you back with me next week. We're going to talk about wrestling fashion, some Zubaz, some fanny packs and acid wash jeans, and, of course, the world-famous mullet that every good wrestler worth the time has ever had. Next week, we have some special guests. We got CG Scum. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but I know who he is, and this man is an absolute savage. He's going to come on the show with us. He's very entertaining. Right now, he's in the middle of doing some rewriting the book on WrestleCrap.com. Check him out, WrestleCrap.com/rewriting the book. He says, and Charles, you might actually be interested in this. This is what if Bret Hart went to WCW on good terms. I'm going to leave you at that. Thank you so much for joining us this week, folks. We'll be back next Sunday at 6 o'clock with my guest, Charles, with my guest, Chris, and we're going to have CG Scum and a couple other guys from WrestleCrap.com on. Till then, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll leave you in a little dedication of Leilani Kai.
And now I'm looking in your eyes in the morning, and then you look at me, girl, and smile, 'cause you know I treat you right all the while. Nowhere else in the world